This podcast is proudly brought to you by Paul's Strength Book, an app for everyone. For less than $2 a day, you can have full access to weight training programs, nutrition, recipes, macro calculators, video library, and you can also track all of your metrics including weight, measurements, strength, and performance. Search for Paul's Strength Book in all good app stores now. Hello and welcome to another edition of the Paul's Body Engineering podcast. Today's edition comes to you from the tropical and mysterious country of India. We happen to find ourselves in India for another ICN India show, and I thought it'd be a great opportunity to sit down with one of the other judges, one of my fellow judges in Joey Cantlin, to talk about all things bodybuilding and get his take on what it takes to become a champion. So let's get straight into it and have a chat with Joey. All right, well, we're here. We're in India after what has been, I've lost count of how many hours. A lot of hours, a lot of travel, not much sleep. But that's my story. I'll tell you what, Joey's got an even better one because he's been in 6 time zones in the last couple of weeks. So,
yeah.
Joe, before we start, why don't you run us down your travel for the last, well, even domestically, like you did a crap ton of flights internally in Australia before you even headed overseas. So you've been on more planes than probably seen your own bedroom.
Yeah, literally. And it's sad that how literal that is. I don't even think I can recall how many domestic flights I went on this season, but it was a lot. I felt like for a string there, it was probably 3 or 4 weeks. I didn't spend a weekend at home at all.
Yeah, wow.
I was in multiple states, Melbourne, Sydney. Yeah, which was fun, but it's obviously very taxing as well because you don't get a lot of sleep because there's turnaround times to get back to the airport and go home or go back to your apartment, get ready for the next day, fly to the next state for the next show, again, then go back home the next day, so all happening. But the last sort of 72 hours, a lot of people probably know that I've been overseas in America.
Yep.
Had my partner Lisa competing over there and had some clients competing over there as well. Then I spent a week in New York. So we went to Orlando, Miami, the Bahamas, then to Seattle, then to New York, where I had a week with 2 friends of mine, Dan and Lawrence, both clients as well. And yeah, we just kind of had a week off. And then flew from New York to LA, Tuesday morning their time, then LA to Brisbane, arrived home at about 5:30 a.m. Thursday morning, and then got back to my house after clearing my bags, get through customs and all that. I got home at about 7:30 a.m. Did a fair bit of work during that day and obviously had errands to run, and then I was back to the airport literally not even 20 hours after I was back to the airport. I think it was about just after 5 a.m. On the Friday morning, and then obviously we've flown over here and we're recording this on, Sunday
afternoon. Yeah, I know. It's hard to keep up.
Yeah, I did track it down. You're right. I went through 6 different time zones in the space of about 48 to 72 hours. I felt it really bad yesterday because obviously we had multiple delays coming over. We were stuck on the plane for hours multiple times. So even without the time zone stuff, it was rough.
But even sorry to interrupt, but even in America, you were going from the Bahamas, which was hot, to Seattle, which was freezing. So not only was it difference in time zones, it was difference in climates as well. Yeah, so
I've seen just about all of it in the last month. But I will say, we sit here and talk about how strenuous, the travel can be and all that. A lot of people say, that's awesome and stuff. It's it is, but the travel is very tough. But I will say that, I've had a hell of a time over the last, 4 or 5 months, doing so much travel with all my clients and going to all their shows and seeing them do so well, which has been really rewarding. So, yeah, we sit here and we laugh and joke about how rough travel is, but it's all for good reason, and there's a lot of emotional return on investment.
Absolutely. Well, you'd rather be doing this than fly in, fly out stuff these days, wouldn't you?
Yeah, and I've done that. And
exactly.
It's nowhere near as fun. So.
Well, that's a good segue, because obviously I wanted to chat to you today about, not only your most recent season, because arguably, and I've known you for a while now, that it's probably one of your most successful as a coach, just given the stature of results, but more so pick your brain about what makes a champion, because you've obviously coached hundreds of clients, probably thousands to this point,
Maybe,
and many to the top of the podium. We're talking world champions, professionals, IFBB professionals, Olympians, national title holders, state title holders, overall winners. Like, we're talking everything.
Gassing me up here.
Yeah, well, that's what I do. That's what we do in India.
That's it.
But you must have seen a lot of common traits that are delivered by these individuals to get them to that point. Everyone wants to be a bodybuilder, but the difference between the good ones and the okay ones are the 1%ers that the good ones do. So I thought I'd pick your brain about those common traits and what you've seen in the time you've been doing this coaching, in particular more recently with the majority of success you've had, about what the common traits are that these individuals have. This is probably a long conversation, but go for it.
It's really hard to narrow it down to one thing.
I'm sure it's multiple.
It's also just hard to put into words. It's something that you just sort of have to see or experience or be next to.
Yep.
Obviously I live with my partner Lisa, who just turned pro in the IFBB bikini. And she's a classic example of everything that a champion is, and I feel like there's a genetic component to it. Some people just have it.
Yep.
And what I mean by that is they're just relentless. They stop at absolutely nothing. They don't take things, I guess, personal. They don't have an emotional attachment to a result that they might not be able to fully control. Like bodybuilding, for example, you can control your effort and how much work you put in, how much time you spend perfecting your craft, but you can't control who else is going to show up. You can't control what the judges are going to think on the day. And a champion, respective of bodybuilding, understands that and understands that they only are in so much control, so they control every variable as well as they can. But it's just a relentless and also an understanding of sacrifice.
Yes.
Sacrificing certain things in your life, but also sacrificing certain parts of yourself. When you push yourself as hard as some of these people do, and any sports psychologist will tell you, or top-end sports psychologists will tell you, that would work with Olympic athletes, will say that everything comes at a cost emotionally and psychologically, and these types of people understand that there's always a trade-off. And they're okay with that. So, some people might see them as, a little bit too obsessed or too absorbed into one thing, but for them it's everything. And that's what it takes to be a champion a lot of the time. There has to be trade-offs, there has to be sacrifices, and that goes further than just not having dinner out with your partner once a week, or not having meals out with your family and stuff. It goes much deeper than that. So I'd say if you try and put it into words, that's probably as good as I can put it, but it's just a relentlessness. And it's just understanding sacrifice, refusal to give up. Like, I'll use Lisa as another example. Like, I can't even remember what year her first show was. I didn't coach her for her first couple of years. But I want to say it was maybe 2014 or 15.
I think it was up actually against Monty.
So
14 or 15.
14 or 15, and I wasn't a coach then. I took over, I think it was late 2016.
Okay.
And she already had that champion mindset before then. Like, I can't sit here and take the credit and say I developed that.
You can, it's okay. No one's listening.
But she had that from day one. Even as as a little girl, she used to be a dancer, and particularly in ballet. Right. And anyone who knows any shade about dancing is ballet is probably one of the more disciplined forms of dancing. I might not be 100% correct there, but I know it's extremely disciplined and you have to be perfect. And she grew up around that and she was very good at it. She would, win competitions and all that kind of stuff. I don't know her exact results and stuff, but she's got all photos of the trophies and stuff and medals, so she no doubt did well there. But I think that level of perfectionism required and the love of it probably just developed such a strong disciplined mindset. But she was probably born that way. She was probably brought up very early. I know her parents very well. She was brought up, not strict, but always taught to work hard and give your best.
Sure.
So I think, maybe some people are born with it to a degree, but it probably comes down to what you're doing earlier in your life as well, and the habits and the things you're taught from your parents. But yeah, she's always just had this relentlessness, like not in an aggressive sense, but just we'll never give up. We'll just, she'll do a show and she might win, she might place 4th or 2nd, like she's in the gym the next day.
Yeah.
And she's not the type of person that's gonna go to the gym and kill herself and be in there for 5 hours. She just goes and she does the job. Like, people try to glorify it, and she doesn't glorify it. She just knows what she has to do, and she does it. She does it well. And I've got tons of clients like that. I just use her as an example because I see it every day.
Well,
She goes to the gym in the morning. She does her training.
Yep.
When she's in prep, she's obviously got to do cardio, so she goes back in the evening.
Yep.
She does her cardio, and she'll also pose for a good 1 to 2 hours.
Yeah.
And she won't pose when she feels like it. She won't pose when she's getting it right. It doesn't matter how good or how bad her posing is, she will do it for 1 to 2 hours. If she's got a time set on it, she will do it for that amount of time. And she won't keep doing it until she's good. She'll keep doing it until she can't do it well, and then she'll just keep doing it. She just loves it. She loves to perform. So like I've seen her go from struggling to place well at a show to winning shows, winning overalls, then winning a pro card in a specific federation, then winning the pro world championship in that federation, moving to another federation, becoming a pro in that federation overseas, and then going over to the next federation, which was the IFBB. I think it was 2021, I want to say, or no, 2020.
22, I think, maybe.
No, it was oh, jeez.
Oh, hang on. What are we now?
Yeah, no, season 8, 2022.
Yeah.
She placed 2nd in all of her classes. She got really close.
Yep.
And then she came back this season, and the girl who placed ahead of her, who was very impressive and came back, looking great again. She managed to edge in front of her.
Yep.
There's just a refusal to give up and a refusal to accept that 2nd was good enough.
Sure.
And that's not to say that 2nd isn't good.
No, of course
but
not.
Champions don't want to come 2nd.
They don't settle for 2nd.
They'll be proud of the effort that they put in, but then they'll say, okay, cool, that's great. Now what do I need to do to get first?
Yeah, they don't kick stones. They look at what's next.
It's like, cool, sit in it for 5 minutes.
Yeah.
All right, let's develop a plan. And then, came back 18 months later, got gold in every single class that she did. She missed out on the overall narrowly at both shows in Australia. Went over to the Amateur Olympia in Orlando and placed 2nd. And then we went to the Bahamas and another really, really tough show. Won her class. And I think she did win that class quite comfortably, but the overall was really tough.
Yeah, okay.
There were some impressive girls. And managed to come away with that one. So all of that work, people don't see that.
No.
They just see what it looks like on stage, and they think
the Instagram bits.
Yeah, they think how hard can it be? It's like that's a product of, probably about 10 years of work if we're being truthfully honest. From the day she started going to the gym and taking it semi-seriously to now. And like I said, I've got a lot of clients who have the same mindset. I just use her as an example because we live together and I see it all the time.
Well, she is a good example. I remember we were in Townsville earlier this season and there was a few of us there and we're just catching up because obviously we generally only see each other in India or at a show season.
It's sad.
Yeah.
It is sad.
And so we're at Longboards having a beer and food or whatever, and I can't remember who asked you, and I said, "Oh, is Lisa coming?" You said, "No, she decided not to. She's gone home to eat and pose." And that just is a prime example. I remember that, and I just thought in the back of my head, wow, that's impressive, because she could have come and said hello and been social and all that sort of stuff, but her priorities are there, and all respect to that, and she wanted to pose and practice.
Yeah, it's just, and that wasn't even a conversation. It was, hey, I'm going to do this. Do you want to come? No, I've got to do this.
Yeah.
Cool. No worries. Have fun.
There you go.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
So it's just like I said before. It's like understanding that sacrifices have to be made, and being okay with that.
Yep.
If you want to be a champion at anything, but especially in bodybuilding, there has to be sacrifices made. If you're not comfortable with that, then either don't do it or just be comfortable with, maybe you still win.
Well,
maybe you still win a show, but there's an expiry date on that success if you're not gonna make some significant sacrifices.
That's a good point.
And bodybuilding isn't the same for everyone. Sport isn't the same for everyone. And I'm not sitting here saying that you got to go all in. Like for some people, it's more of a hobby. Yeah. It's more of an interest. But if we're talking about you want to be the best, there has to be sacrifices. In a lot of areas of your life.
Absolutely.
You've almost got to just give a part of yourself up.
Yeah.
Don't
That's a fair way of putting it too.
Yeah.
Still using Lisa as an example, and I know she'll listen to this. So
sorry, she's going to love this.
Sorry, Lisa.
No, don't apologise. She will absolutely love this. She's like, you never talk about me when you go on podcasts. Because I go on a few, and she's like, oh, you never mention me. So today she's getting a whole segment about it.
She's getting the gold treatment.
She will be stoked.
Well, okay, yeah. So using her as an example, then, given that you do obviously know her inside and out in terms of her behaviour and habits, and this particularly with this sport, what about her off season? Because a lot of people obviously don't see that. They see the prep, the posing, the stage performances, the wins, etc. A lot of people's off seasons are somewhat of a challenge, shall we say, in regards to their adherence to a plan. They want to have that social aspect of their life and things like that. Is Lisa similar, or is her prep and her off season exactly the same?
I would say in terms of how she approaches sticking to the plan, they're probably the same.
Yep.
Obviously, there is a level of flexibility that is acceptable.
Mm-hmm. To her or to you?
Both of us.
Okay. Yep.
Like we'll still go out for dinner once every week or 2 weeks. And that can be, considered, I guess, quote unquote, off plan.
Sure.
She'll probably try and work it into her macros, but it doesn't need to be perfect.
Yep.
But her approach to training is the same.
Yep.
Her approach to making sure she eats enough calories is the same. Her approach to posing in the off season is the exact same as well.
Yeah, really?
Like
okay.
she will pose in the off season more than most people will pose in the back end of prep.
Wow.
If a lot of people who listen to this have probably seen her on stage.
Yep.
It's the sole reason why she's such a great poser is she
impressive.
Doesn't just practice when she's in prep. Like I said before, you don't do all that shit when you feel good. You do it when you feel shit. You do it when you don't necessarily need to or have to. You just do it because you know that it's gonna at some point show.
Yeah.
So her off season, as far as how she attacks it, it's probably similar to prep. There's just a little bit more flexibility in terms of the nutritional component, but we still make sure that we don't get too far away from an ideal starting point, because that's where it starts, obviously.
Yep.
You put yourself in a hole early, then you got to get out of that hole, then get ahead.
Correct.
So the off season is where you win the show.
It is.
The prep is basically just where you unwrap everything that you've built. If you don't take your off season seriously, then what are you doing? And it's the same for any sport. NBA players, AFL players, Olympic athletes, like track and field. You don't necessarily make progress within the season because you're too busy playing the game or doing the event. It's very, very hard to physically improve. The off season, where your energy availability is a little bit higher, you might have a little bit more spare time because the smaller details of what's required of you in season might be a little bit less. That's where you have a chance to, I guess, lap the competition. And I feel like Lisa takes that very seriously. We just started our off season, to compete as a pro in 2025. So 2 more years. But yeah, the work absolutely starts from the minute you get off stage.
Of course, absolutely. In regards to that, then, does she, and I guess we're going to use her for the prime example for this entire podcast now, does she or do you oversee, the aspects of prep and the off-season that can obviously go quite pear-shaped quite quickly in regards to stress, sleep, mindset, expectation, I was going to say depression, but that probably doesn't come into it as much, but we know how affected those things can be at any given stage in general life, but in prep they are amplified 10 times.
Yeah.
Is that something she has a great hold of? Because I know, and with all due respect, Lisa, she can overthink things.
Oh, she's a massive overthinker, and she's a terrible decision maker.
There you go. So that would amplify stress or anxiety to a degree. So
sometimes she can't decide how she feels.
Okay.
She doesn't know if she's stressed. She doesn't know if she's anxious, or anxious in a bad way or a good way.
Right.
So I guess you obviously in our unique situation where we're in a relationship, you have to figure out which hat you need to put on. But from a coaching perspective, I think it's just about being honest about what you see as a coach and how you think they feel.
Yep.
And they have to relay to you, the client, how they truly feel, because we can't read everyone's mind. Like Lisa, I can read like a book because I've lived with her for 5 years. So I know when she's not telling the truth. I know when she doesn't feel good.
Yep.
It's the smallest things I can pick up on. But as far as all my other clients go, like, and you would say the same, is like there needs to be an open line of communication, because that stuff absolutely plays a role.
Yep.
And it can be something as small as having one night of bad sleep. Can lead to you, feeling shit in the morning, which can lead to a really crap day. And people get in their head, it's like, hey, it's just a bad day, not a bad life. Flush it and get on with it.
Absolutely.
But there just needs to be open lines of communication and transparency, and that's something that Lisa's pretty good at.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Do you find that's more challenging with the majority of clients who you don't see face to face, so online, in terms of the communication, or do you have to build that relationship with them, particularly if they're relatively new, so that they will open up to you when they've had a crap day, when they're feeling down, when they're having a fight with their partner, when they're having their period, like all those sorts of things obviously are very important to know. Yeah,
I think it just depends on the person. Like everyone's different. Some people don't want to talk about it.
Yep.
Some people will just know how they're feeling and deal with it on their own and not mention it. And then it might come up in conversation 6 weeks later. I'm like, hey, you should have mentioned that. And it's like, that's fine. I managed to handle it on my own.
Okay.
So some people don't feel like they need to communicate, whereas some people feel like they need to communicate everything.
Yeah.
Like you would know that some clients you will talk to every single day.
Yes.
Some clients, they don't want to hear from you. They don't want to speak to you unless it's check-in day.
Yep.
So everyone's different, and I find that just figuring out what makes each specific person tick and how you can get them to open up, that's a skill, I feel like, as a coach. I guess there would be an element of building the right relationship and building a good amount of rapport to make them feel comfortable with, opening up. If you create an environment that makes them feel like if they speak up, they're going to get smacked down or they're going to get treated poorly, they're probably not going to communicate with you. So you need to create a space where they feel comfortable with opening up, but also comfortable with knowing that you're going to be honest with them. It's a slippery slope. It's a very slippery slope, because I always say there's a time to drop the hammer, but then there's a time to just be empathetic. And instead of trying to give advice or trying to dig them out of the hole, just listen to them and let them... Some things don't need to be fixed. Some things just need to be felt. Like, not everything needs a solution. And knowing when to push those buttons or pull those strings, it's not easy. And I've got it wrong plenty of times. But it's something that, it's a skill that you have to develop if you want to be able to have your clients communicate with you openly and, more importantly, honestly.
Yeah, absolutely.
And it makes a big difference.
100% it does. Like any client. I think that's integral to any coach's role in any sport. Like I've been doing my postgraduate in high performance sport, and obviously that's heavily revolved around team sports, in professional team sports, and I've listened to a lot of lectures from strength and conditioning coaches, head of high performance, and all that sort of stuff. And one of the key attributes that they all relay is communication.
Yeah.
From the coach to the player, from the player to the coach, and then all the staff around, and that's key. All right, let's give Lisa a break for a moment.
Put her on the shelf.
Yeah, put her on the shelf. And I'm hoping it's okay to freely talk about some of your other clients, but talk to me about Becky, because she basically won everything.
Literally.
Yeah, like literally walked away and won everything this season. It was phenomenal, and she's a beautiful lady, amazing pose, incredible physique. Mm-hmm. Would she have any traits or attributes that you've noticed in particular this season? Because this is what, her third maybe?
Third or fourth.
Yeah.
I'm not super specific on the details. I'd have to go through the paperwork. But this is our first season together. We worked a bit together in the off season beforehand.
Yep.
And yeah, this is our first prep together.
Okay. So did you see anything at any stage during the time you've been working with her that sort of even early on suggested, you know what, this girl's got something?
Oh yeah, it's. You know how I said before, like some people just have it? Yep. She has it.
Yeah,
like she is just relentless.
Yeah, okay.
Like you tell her, you say jump, she'll say, cool, how high?
Yeah, okay.
And then she'll jump that high and say, do you want me to go higher? You know, so she's someone that is super relentless.
Yeah,
I would say, you know, and you know, I'm sorry if you're not happy with me talking about this, Becky. I'm sure she'll be fine. But sometimes Becky gets in her own head a lot, and she puts a lot of pressure on herself.
Okay.
But I feel like that's a trait of a champion.
Yeah.
Is they carry a lot of pressure, and that pressure doesn't come from anywhere else. It comes from themselves. Like she was very concerned about the last show of the season because she's like, you know, I've had such a great season and I really want to finish on a good note.
Yep. I
said, yeah, totally get it. And trust me, I want that just as much as you do as your coach.
Yeah.
But just, you know, talked to off legend and said, you know, we can't control it. We've done everything up until now and you've done so well. So all we can do is just trust the work and get out there and see how we go. And, you know, I've told her often, you know, you're in a class of your own.
Yeah.
Like, you know, and she truly is. But she possesses so many traits of a champion. Like
when you say you told her that you're in a class of your own, when you talk to a client like that, are you specific in regards to who you tell that to? Because obviously that can inflate an ego per se.
Yeah, no, I'll be a straight shooter.
Yep.
I'm not going to say that to someone who might be a first timer.
Okay.
You know, like. But as far as mentality goes,
yep.
I don't necessarily mean it in the sense of she's better than everyone.
Sure.
I mean it in the sense of like how she approaches her craft.
Okay.
And how much pressure she puts on herself to perform. She's truly, you know, one of one.
Yeah, well.
So, you know, shout out to her. I'm sure she'll listen to this after I tell her that she got a mention. But she had a phenomenal season, and there wasn't 1 minute where she let up, or let go of the rope. It's very rare to find like even a really high performing athlete do everything absolutely perfectly for 30, 40, 50, 60 weeks. There might be one slip up in there, but Becky didn't falter once. You know, she's had some pretty rough previous dieting experiences, which has led to some issues that she's got now, which might probably be some long-term issues. So Becky's prep doesn't look like anyone else's. Like she has to dig harder than the average person, but no one sees that.
Yeah.
So if everyone knew exactly what she had to do to get in stage condition, and this time she was truly in stage condition. Yeah. She was peeled from head to toe, back to front. People will be like, yeah, wow, respect.
Yeah,
like she is, like I said, she's 1-1.
In regards to everyone that you manage, because obviously, you know, you obviously bring in quality every single time for all of your athletes, but you know what people don't see, particularly those that have never experienced it, is that digging that you mentioned. You know, you and I both competed. We know how tough it can be, and you're at the end of your tether when it comes to the back end of the prep. So how, in particular, because her season was quite long too. So you know, did she compete in Townsville?
No, she competed in Coffs Harbour, so the week after.
Right. Okay. So it was still.
And we didn't even plan that.
Yeah. Right.
We did two shows off the cuff. earlier because I was like, yeah, look, you're not going to be 100% ready, but it's been a while since you competed. Why don't we just blow out the cobwebs?
Sure.
She still won those shows.
Yeah.
And she was probably at about 85%.
Wow.
By the time she got overseas to her initially planned shows,
Yep.
she was on point. So everything was perfect. But yeah, she did have a long season, I think, because Coffs Harbour was mid-September or early September, and her last show was mid-November.
Yeah, so that's long.
It's a long season. That's just over 2 months.
Yeah, that's a long time to hang on.
It's a long time to be shredded.
Yeah.
Like, most people can't even get shredded, let alone be shredded for 2 months. Like, the amount of stress that has on you physically, physiologically, and psychological is just so demanding.
Big time.
So, yeah, it's not easy.
So, yeah, well, I mean, to grind through a season like that and have the results that she did, obviously, is a testament to her, not only her character, but I guess her resilience, her mental resilience,
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. Like, she's tough. She's a tough woman.
Yeah, wow.
Very strong. Like, in the gym and out of the gym.
Yep.
Okay. She's tough.
Unreal.
And she lives in a fairly, like, rural area, too.
Oh, okay.
So, she doesn't, like, have the most amazing gym facility.
Yeah,
so,
right.
You know, she just gets in, grips it and rips it, mate, and
there you go. See,
gets the job done.
Even that's a testament, because obviously, you know, anyone who lives in a built-up area is spoiled for choice when it comes to gyms. You know, we've got world gyms everywhere. We've got powerhouses. We've got good lives, and you know, whatever else. Whereas, you know, I've got some clients that live in rural areas that have very basic equipment, and but they still get it done.
Yeah.
You know, you make it work. So that's impressive. All right. Well, let's move on to the general. let's give him a shout out, because he's always popping up on podcasts every which way. He does his own, of course, which is actually quite good, and that's why I know a lot about his season, because I've listened to it closely, which has been very interesting. But I think I said to you, I might have said it to you in town when we were catching up for those drinks, and I said to you, actually, it was in India, because you showed me a photo of him, and he was, I don't know, 6 weeks into his prep or something like that last year, and I said, do you know anyone who is more professional in their off season? And I can't remember your reply, but it was obviously something along the lines of, no, he's just...
Not many.
Yeah, not many. Doesn't put a foot wrong. So, you know, at 23, that's pretty bloody impressive, right?
Yeah, I mean, he was like this when he was 20, 21.
Like, 23, I was overseas drinking, and I don't even know what I was doing.
Yeah, I got on stage around then, but, I mean, I like to think I grew up pretty fast. But, yeah, like, when I was... Sort of, even at that age when I was competing, I was still going out every now and then, still carrying on and doing stupid shit. But he's grown up very fast. He's just wise beyond his years, and I think that is probably an attribute that, you know, has carried him so far through, you know, the success that he's had as a bodybuilder. You know, on and off the stage, like not just from a results standpoint, but creating the physique that he has. You know, he could never get on stage again, and he would still be considered a great natural bodybuilder.
Absolutely. Yeah.
You know, just purely based on the physique he's created.
Do you think, and you know, I don't know him that well, I've spoken to him numerous times, but do you think one of his underlying attributes for his success to this point is his passion for the sport?
Oh, yeah, 100%.
Yeah.
Like, when you're this passionate about something, and it's the same with Lisa, it's the same with Becky, it's the same with a lot of my other clients. They genuinely just love bodybuilding. They genuinely love what they do. And when you're passionate about something, someone who comes along who thinks they're passionate, they're just going to get embarrassed. You know, like, the dude just flat out loves it. And loves it so much to the point where he just respects it so much. So he respects the work and always gives it his best. But I would actually say the older he's got and the better his physique has got, the more he's actually learned to, I guess, relax from time to time and know when to pull back. Whereas, like, when you're younger, you know, it's always like, go, like, absolutely. You know, you're so passionate that you just want to jump in and give it everything.
But this is a patient game, isn't it?
Yeah, exactly. And he's starting to get better at learning that, or he's learned that now, and he's a lot better at being able to unplug for a minute and zoom out and look at things objectively and say like, okay, probably cooked myself a little bit here, probably need to take a step back here.
Yep.
And like, obviously I'm absolutely in the driver's seat as a coach, but now like we've been working together for so long, it's been like 7 years. It's almost like a collaboration to a degree. Like in prep down the stretch, it's absolutely, mate, do this, do that. But you know, throughout most of the prep and the off season, it's like, hey, what do you think? I think this. What do you think? Just because he's become so well versed in the area.
I was
of
about to say
bodybuilding.
his vernacular and his knowledge in the sport, like being a physio as well.
Yeah,
is
absolutely.
second to none.
So we bounce ideas off each other all the time, and that's probably something that makes him an even better bodybuilder as well. Is you know, he sometimes thinks of things that I'm like, yeah, that's a great idea. Let's give that a crack. So yeah,
I think he's like one of his highlights this season, and he spoke about it deeply in his in one of his podcasts, was his overall win at Townsville, right, where he turned a loss into a win effectively. A lot of individuals will walk away from that loss with, given the high expectation that you put on yourself as a bodybuilder, kick some stones, and obviously, you know, potentially go into the next division or overall or whatever it is with a worse attitude. He just came out and was all guns blazing. Obviously, you had a bit to do with that. Do you want to talk us through that just quickly in regards to, because you changed up his posing, I know that. And obviously, you had to have I don't know, would you say a man-to-man backstage, or was he? Because I know he had a moment where he was upset with the result.
He had a minute. You know, he came off stage pretty quickly, and I knew that he wouldn't be impressed. So in those moments, like again, like I said before, like part of being a good coach is knowing when to pull what strings. Right then, he didn't need me to say, "Oh, you're okay, you this." And so. Of course, he's not fucking okay. He just got a result that he didn't want. So I just said, "Well done, mate," and just let him do his thing for 1 or 2 minutes. Because I know he needed to breathe. So I just left him, and then came over after about 5 minutes. Like, all right, where's your head at? How you feeling? He goes, what can I do better? I was like, I think we need to change this. I think we need to change that. Look, maybe it's not your day, but maybe we can turn this around. Like, I've seen crazier things happen.
Absolutely.
So let's do this. Like, I wasn't sitting there saying, like, no, you can win this, you can win this. I was sitting there saying, you know, maybe it's not your day, but maybe we can switch it around. You know, like, you just got to never get too high, never get too low. The athlete is going through enough emotion right now. They need someone to be, you know, a little bit more even keel. So that's something I always try and do as a coach is don't get too high, don't get too low. So I said, let's change this. I think you need to pump up a little bit harder. I think you were going through the motions a little bit too much in the first division. Let's push a little bit more salt through. Let's push a little more carbohydrates through. See how much more we can fill you out without making you look worse. So we went a little bit more aggressive on that side of things. And as he was pumping up more and more backstage, I'm like, all right, we're looking better. And then when he came out the second time, I said, you know, like, give it a bit more mongrel. Like, you know, show that you really want to be there, because you looked a little bit flat in the first one. He's like, all right, we can do this. So, yeah, we had to have a probably an uncomfortable conversation. It's always uncomfortable when your client really wants to win and they think they can, and they come off stage and they don't get it.
Would you think that was easy to do given your relationship with him?
Yeah. Because we'd established such a close, like, he's one of my best friends. So not even just as a coach, but as a friend, like, I'm gonna keep it a buck with him. I've even said to him at shows like where he's like, you know, placed third or fourth, about fair. Like, you weren't near it today. Like that those guys.
It is what it is.
We've even had a funny moment at, like, it's happened a couple of times at shows where we'll just see a dude backstage before we're going back on stage, and I'll just look at him and he'll look at me, and I'll just be like, all right, good luck. Obviously, I always believe that he can get it, but there's been a couple of times where just a funny moment like that. But yeah, getting back to that day, you know, he came out, he posed way better, he looked a little bit fuller in the muscles, and I don't know, you know, whether it was the increased fullness or the better posing, or just a combination of both, but I feel like he did enough to reverse the result because I feel like it was already close.
Yeah.
And yeah, we managed to come away with that, and then came off stage obviously very excited after that class, but we still had to go up for the overall. So I was like, like it's not over.
Yeah.
You still got to come out, you still got to look like that again.
Absolutely.
As you know, when you're that shredded and you flatten out so quick, it's really hard to keep that look. Like that, getting that right look, you may only have it for 10 minutes.
Yeah.
And you got to pick. Sometimes you got to pick your poison, like when you want to look your best. I always find it's in your earlier classes, because that's the first impression of the judges get of you. And sometimes judges just don't look again. Like they don't judge the division as a new division. And this is something I have to give credit to the judges at that show. Is they scrapped what happened in the previous division, say, all right, it's a new division, we start again. That's something I always try and do as a judge as well. Is strip it back. All right, new division, judge what's here. But yeah, we came out, won the overall, which was great. So that was a character building day, and it just goes to show that even something like bodybuilding that might be subjective, and if you place second in a class early in the day, that doesn't have to be your destiny. Like it doesn't have to be the end. You can still change it.
Absolutely.
I've even had a client beat someone in an earlier class and then lose in the overall, purely because said girl changed her posing to suit the criteria better.
Yep.
Because her and her coach obviously did what Lawrence and I did and said, hey, there's a way we can get better here.
Yeah.
And she came out and she won the overall, and I said, yeah, fair enough.
Yeah. Well, that's
like
it.
She deserved it.
If it can be justified, absolutely.
Yeah, I said if I was a judge, I would have said the same thing.
Yeah. Okay.
So,
there you go.
And yeah, going back to having that relationship with your clients, being able to be honest like that, like as a coach, it's just so refreshing to have that relationship where you're comfortable enough to say those things,
100%.
And they're going to take it the right way
without feeling like they're going to be offended or
No, I think if either one of you is offended at any point, you probably haven't built the right relationship yet.
Yep.
It's not to say you can't.
No, of course.
Like I've got people in the industry say that you shouldn't get close with your clients, you shouldn't build personal relationships because they all move on at some point. So why do they have to move on?
Yeah.
Like why can't we have personal relationships? Because I feel like if I look at like all the great bodybuilders of this past season who won shows, you look at the relationship they have with their coach, and they're all close with their coaches.
Yeah.
Like it's something I've always prided myself on, is having a great relationship with all of my clients, because I feel like if we have a good, solid relationship, I can get so much more out of them.
100%.
I can push them not just as a coach, but as a friend.
Yeah.
Sometimes people don't want, like I said before, not everything needs to be fixed.
Yeah.
Just felt. So
yeah, true.
You don't need to be a coach all the time. Sometimes just be a friend, be a sounding board. So yeah.
Very cool. And in regards to having witnessed it myself there, Lawrence's overall win, you could tell when he got told that he won, the passion and the emotion that came out of him. And that's just a testament to the dude, right? As I said before, one of his shining lights in terms of what I see as an observer is his passion.
Yeah.
You hear it in his podcast, you hear how he talks about bodybuilding, and you see it on stage. So it's obviously something that is a trait that gets him across the line more times than not, I would say.
Yeah, and he's passionate about his work too.
Yeah.
Physio, he's wanted to be a physio for a long time, and he's still relatively new. He's only been in it a couple of years now. Obviously, he's graduated, now he's working full time, but he is great. He's a great physio. He's better than some physios I know that have been at it for 15 years because he's just so passionate.
Love that. How good.
So if you ever need a good physio,
there you go.
Just a quick little plug for you there, Lawrence.
All right, well, how long are we going now for? Nearly 44 minutes. That's not bad. We've got some Q&As that we'll answer in a second, but I wanted to get your thoughts, and obviously this is subjective and it doesn't have to be. I was going to do top 3 things for a new competitor to try and improve what I say improve, get them to the finish line, but also top 3 things for a returning competitor. So obviously they're going to be quite different in regards to traits or discipline or behaviour or attitude or mindset or anything like that, but just based on your own experience, for a new competitor first and foremost, what do you believe they should more or less invest in regards to themselves to get them to the finish line? Because we know how the power just went out. Welcome to India.
Yeah, no good.
That's right. They'll go and restart the rubber band in a second. But yeah, a first-time competitor coming into a season under a coach, there's a lot of unknowns, right? Mm-hmm. They see all the glitz and glamour of the end game, but you can't explain how crap you can feel towards the back end of the season. Mm-hmm. So, passion and drive is going to be one thing, but what are 3 points that you would potentially tell someone when you first talk to them about a potential prep?
Ask questions.
Yeah.
Ask so many questions. If you don't ask questions, you'll never learn, obviously.
Yeah, 100%.
Like some coaches will get offended when you ask a lot of questions because they'll think that you're questioning them.
Yeah.
So sometimes also when you ask questions, make sure you do it in a way that's not like that. I personally understand that everyone's got questions, so I'm never worried about that. But ask so many questions. You don't know what you don't know.
100%.
The smartest people in the world have probably got a direct correlation with how many questions they ask.
Yeah.
They probably ask more questions than what they answer, to be honest.
Fair point.
I feel like all I do is answer questions now, but in my earlier years, I asked so many people so many questions, and if I couldn't get an answer, I'd try and find it myself.
Yep.
So ask a ton of questions and get as much knowledge as you can on how it all works. Obviously, by this point, I'm assuming this person has invested in a coach. Put your faith and trust in that person because you have to give it to someone.
Yes.
You can't go through a prep, like in the back end, not giving someone the keys to the car. Trying to make your own decisions in the back end of a prep when you're truly in contest shape, it's just impossible. So I would say putting your trust in someone is probably another point. There's probably so many good ones, and I'm just going blank here.
That's all right.
Ask questions, put your trust and faith in someone, and just do research in general. Like if you've never competed or never been to a show, go to a damn show.
Yeah,
I had a client this season who she turned pro. It was her first season ever. She does rodeo horse riding, like barrel racing.
Yeah, okay.
The furthest thing from a bodybuilder ever, but she had a great physique when we started and just responded like that, just grew like no tomorrow. She came into the season and did exceptionally well, but she didn't ask many questions. I had to prompt her to ask the questions. So, hey, do you have any questions? Do you know about this? Do you know about that? So I kind of had to do that. She obviously trusted me because she's like, oh, this guy knows what he's doing, whatever.
Sure.
I don't know a thing about bodybuilding, so I've got to trust someone.
Yeah.
But I made her go and watch a show.
Okay.
She's like, oh, I've never been to a show. I'm like, right, that's something you have to do this, I think by this point we'd only just started prep. So you have to go to a show, not just to see, the show itself, but learn how it works, feel the energy, get a feel for what it's going to be like on stage.
It can be quite overwhelming, hey? If you're not prepared for it.
Yeah, if you've never been to a show and then you get on a bodybuilding stage, you're going to be like a deer in headlights. I mean, you'll be a deer in headlights even if you do go and watch a show. Imagine if you don't.
Yeah.
I would say that is do as much research as possible.
Yep.
Go and watch as many shows as you can. They're probably 3 obvious ones. I'm sure there's a hell of a lot of other ones, and as soon as you stop recording, I'm probably gonna rattle off about 93 of them.
We'll do part 2 later.
Yeah.
But you know what? I completely agree with that. They're 3 really good points because, like you said, for a first timer, they don't know what they don't know. So to tell them to train this way or eat this way or anything like that when they've got no knowledge around what they're in for anyway, it's better to have asked as many questions, understand what you're getting into, and obviously experience what you can. But what about returning competitors? Whether you've worked with them before or not, but they have had the experience of competing, might be several times, but they're still looking to improve.
Yeah.
What are 3 things that you would suggest in regards to that? So they know the fundamentals of training, nutrition. Obviously, they're coming to you because they trust what you do.
Yeah. If they've competed, I think the first thing you have to do is be accepting and open and willing to hear feedback.
Yeah.
Some people don't like to be told what they're not good at.
Yeah.
You have to be willing to hear that.
That's me.
you got to hear it, because if you can't figure out the feedback and know what you've got to work on, you're just going to keep going in and training your favorite muscle groups and come in the same condition every time because it's comfortable, and you're going to keep coming forth. And look, if you enjoy that, that's fine. Like I said before, like not everyone competes to, be Mr. Olympia. No. Some people just do it because they love to train and, they need something to chase. So that's fine, but be open and accepting to feedback, and let someone actually critique you. Let them in, so to speak. Again, do your research. Like you're never too smart. Like if you feel like you need another coach, go and do some research. I know tons of people who compete and they have a negative experience the first time because they didn't research. Like, we can sit here and say like, that was poor coaching practice or whatever. It's like, at some point, the client has to be held accountable too.
Yes.
Because they may not have done their research. I've coached tons of people that have had previous coaches in the past, and they're like, if I could go back in time, the one thing I would have done is probably research more and not just listen to, old Jim at the gym say, go and see this person. So, do your research and make sure you seek out someone that you feel like you can connect with and that you can trust. Like, being able to trust someone is so important in this game. And then the third one is be willing to get uncomfortable, because to make those improvements, like if you're moving on from your coach to a new coach and you're going to have another crack, chances are it's because you want to do better. If you want to do better, get ready to, embrace some sort of suck. I've had clients come from other coaches and say like, oh, this prep was easier and I look better. But I've also had clients come back and say, I look way better, but this prep really sucked. It's like, because you probably just didn't push last time. You weren't pushed. Sometimes it can be a matter of, that coach had good practice, but they may not have been able to get through to the client to push them to that next level. And that's why I say like relationships and communication are so important, because you got to find what makes that person tick. You got to be able to get them out of a hole when they're in one, and you got to sometimes be the wind in their back.
Absolutely.
So I would say those are the three things. Again, I'll come up with 90 when we finish, but
Just as a
if you have any, you bring them up.
I agree with all of yours. I certainly do. As an example, with and this can be anyone, first time seasoned competitor, whatever, breaking their diet close to the end of the season. Look, it can happen. It has happened. I've had multiple experiences with that. I'm sure you have had the same. Because at the end of the day, people get emotional. Obviously, hunger becomes a real thing. Fatigue kicks in. Sleep's obviously getting worse. So something potentially can go. What's your advice in regards to those sort of experiences? Because obviously, from my personal experience, firstly, they'll go through the motions of eating when they shouldn't, and quantity irrelevant. Secondly, then they start kicking stones and are really down on themselves. Then they want to try and make up for it by doing a million Stairmaster reps and train 5 hours in the day and things like that. So what's your position on that sort of scenario? Because I'm sure I'm speaking to a large population when I talk about this, because it does happen a lot.
I think as a coach, how I was saying before that the athlete gets emotional in those times, and like they're feeling all the emotions. And it's gonna, like, initially we want to get mad. It's like, oh, you bloody idiot. Like, why would you do that? Like they're already feeling stupid. They're already feeling like a failure. They've already got a million things rushing through their mind. Don't make them panic any more than they already are, because then you just make the situation 10 times worse. Say, all right, look, this isn't ideal, but it's okay. It's a one-off. We can still recover from this. Let's just do this tomorrow, or let's just get back on your plan. Like, obviously, context is important here, so I'm not going to, use a blanket statement. But, the last thing you want to do is make that person feel any worse than they do, because they already feel like shit. You don't need to pile on. Like, people say like, "Oh, you idiot! How can you're not dedicated?" It's like, dude, like they already know that they're an idiot. Like, just like, you know, hear them out. Say, all right, let's just try again tomorrow. Start again.
You do have to, like, you're right. You've got to know when to drop the hammer, but you also do have to be empathetic. Because before going on my own experience, I think it was even my first season. It's almost an out of body experience when
it is.
Yeah, you just lose all control.
You do.
And again, as a first timer, you've got no idea what the fuck's going on. So yeah, you've got to obviously heavily rely on someone to give you direction and pull the reins when they need to. So that's a fair point. Like,
and just finding what makes people tick.
Yeah.
Some people really, really thrive off tough love.
Yep.
Some people, you even slightly raise your voice at them, and they just crumble like a house of cards.
Yeah.
Like, for example, like, anytime I raise my voice at home, Lisa's terrified. And I don't have to raise it very high. She's like, don't yell. And I'm not yelling at her. She's like, don't, you're scaring me. I'm like, all right. But some people, they want to be screamed in their face.
Yeah, right.
So again, comes back to knowing what makes the person tick.
I can't imagine you yelling. You sort of get to a comedic pitch.
I yell. I yell behind the scenes. Lots of yelling.
For fuck's sake.
Yeah, I'm one of those people that will be pretty even keel.
Yeah.
And you won't see it coming, and then one little thing will happen, and I just, God damn. Yeah, I don't often lose my cool as a coach. There's only been one time this year where I just fully broke.
Oh yeah.
And just absolutely let someone have it. Yeah, I wasn't proud of that, but
I have seen you, like, I'm a big observer, right? So I'm a people watcher, and as creepy as that may sound.
No, I like that.
Yeah.
You can watch me whenever
Okay,
you want.
I do. Because if you've got someone on stage and I don't, but I'm out there, it's like the old saying, you know, always turn and look at the groom when the bride's coming down the aisle to see his reaction. I always look at the coach. And I've seen you numerous times when a result hasn't gone your way, fucking throw a massive tantrum in the crowd. Bottle's gone, or fucking shoes are kicked off, or
heads in the hands.
Oh
like,
yeah. So which is good, right? Because you care. You know, at the end of the day, we're riding the emotion as much as the athlete because we invest as well, which is it's cool.
And even if we agree with the decision, we're like, I was really hoping they'd get that one wrong.
I know. Yeah.
But no, I think on that point, like we as coaches, we take the result just as hard, you know, when it doesn't go the athlete's way as they do. Sometimes I feel like I take it worse than they do, in terms of like when they win, they want to share the success and they want to say, "Oh, thank you so much for helping out." I don't want to hear it. Like, leave me out of it. I don't want any of the credit.
Yeah.
Just, you know, you enjoy it. But then when they lose, I feel like I have to take all the blame.
Yeah.
Like, it's the most bizarre thing ever. Like, I won't speak on the exact situation, but there was something that happened at a show this season that kept me up for nights.
Yeah, right.
And I just could not shake it. The athlete didn't really care that much.
Sure.
But I was just like, I feel horrible. I feel like I failed them. Obviously, I hadn't, but you would know what I'm talking about.
I know exactly.
And any coaches listening to this, you'll know. And I actually had this conversation with another coach about a similar situation at some point in the season. I said, yeah, I get it. Like, you know, it makes you sick.
Yeah.
And, you know, sometimes you just want to say to the client, like, hey, like, you know, like, don't let that affect you. Like, you know, you deserve better or whatever. Like, you know, it's sometimes really hard.
Yeah, I experienced that this season too, because in one of the overalls, I won't name which one, but you'll know exactly what I'm talking about. Your client beat my client,
which could have honestly gone either way.
And I kicked stones for a few days after that.
you would have, mate. Yeah.
Oh.
I get it. Trust me. Like, that exact show, that exact division, you would know my clients have been, and that particular client that won on that day has been second so many frigging times. And I have been you so many times. And this time I was not going to let anyone give it. I was like, oh, we fucking won. Yes, let's go. And that was the one time that I would have been okay to say, like, you know, like, the other competitor. You know, could have that. It was so neck and neck.
Oh, I know. I was riding every inch of that emotion.
Yeah, and I was watching you. I was watching the division. I was watching you. I'm like, oh god. You know, it was a tough day, but a good day.
Yeah, it was a tough day. It's interesting. Yeah, like, it is a tough day because I know we're getting off topic here, but you know, and I'm sure it's even more amplified for you. But you get home after a couple of back-to-back weekends, and you're so mentally drained. You're almost like you're a zombie for a few days after, right?
Because you're dealing with your own emotions, but then you've got to deal with everyone else's as well. That's probably the hardest part about it, is doing all the debriefing and having hard conversations with your clients about where they placed, why they placed where they placed, what they need to do better, how much can they realistically improve within a season. And, you know, like I said before about, you know, being honest, but doing it in a way that doesn't demotivate them.
Yes.
Huge balancing act. It's really hard. So, you know, we as coaches, we deal with our own emotions and other people's emotions. It's really hard. I'm definitely getting therapy when I
was literally about to say, when's your psych appointment booked? Didn't you?
I haven't booked one yet, but like, all jokes aside, I think I'm genuinely going to go and see a therapist.
I think between the amount of wins and emotion you've had to undertake this season, all the travel, the different time zones, different climates, you're probably due.
I'm so hard done by. I'm joking. But I for real though, like, coaches definitely, like, not just bodybuilding coaches, like football coaches, basketball coaches, track and field coaches, you know, Olympic sporting coaches, they all, like, have to take on, you know, their own emotions and their athletes' emotions. They're just invested as they are, but they don't do the actual job, you know, on the field. Yeah. You know, it's as much the performance and obviously all the training and all that stuff, the you know, crossing the T's and dotting the I's, as it is the emotion, the communication, getting in that athlete's head to get them to that point. Yeah, you go on the right route. Yeah. All right. Well, let's hit some of these Q&As. Excuse me, I only got one, but I read it to you before. You know exactly who it is. So I'll read out the guy's name: Trent Baker Tattoo, or Trent Barker. Yeah. Not tattoo. Sorry, Trent. What's been the biggest transformation he's got, or you've got, as a coach to witness from one of your clients? I think transformation happens in a lot of different ways. Yes. I don't want to make this a long-winded, you know, thing about, you know, transformation in general, but I've seen incredible transformations, you know, physiologically, psychologically, and physically. I think physically or visually, the biggest transformation I've probably seen is Trent himself. Yep. I can't remember the exact amount of weight loss he had from the top to the bottom, but I want to say it was close to like 70 kilos. Wow. So Trent competed back in, I can't remember the year, it was a few years ago. Yeah. He'd already got off like a really good amount of weight before we started together. And, you know, when he reached out to me and showed me what he'd already done, I was like, all right, this guy's in for the count. Like, he does the work. Yeah. And he got on stage and he looked fantastic. You know, didn't win the show or anything, but I think he placed in the top 5. But yeah, like, you wouldn't look at him on stage and think this dude's lost, you know, like, literally half his whole body weight. That's impressive. So I think from a physical standpoint, like, yeah, it was probably Trent. Yeah. Even like some of the stuff he told me, what type of person he used to be and how he used to feel about himself or how he would see himself. Yep. You know, like, I won't share, you know, what he told me, but from where he came from to getting on stage with his clothes off, showing off his body, from where he was, just a huge mental shift. And, you know, it goes to show that the age-old saying of, like, look good, feel good, like, it's generally pretty true. I'm not saying everyone has to be in shape, but generally, if you feel good about how you look, you'll generally be a happy person. And I think that was definitely the case for Trent. And his health is obviously a hell of a lot better. Oh, yeah. So I would say, as far as like the most impressive transformation I've seen has probably been Trent's, if I had to objectively just pick one person. But I've seen so many from a physical and emotional standpoint. So would you have seen, and I'm going to assume you have, many that have gone through
some form of physical and mental transformation, compete, and then go on to become successful coaches as well?
Yeah. I can't remember off the top of my head who those people are, but yes, absolutely.
Yeah,
and I think everyone who becomes a coach has probably gone through some sort of awesome transformation themselves.
Yep.
They've sort of been through it, and that's probably what makes them a fantastic coach, is they've experienced it themselves.
Yeah.
And now they can say, you know, hey, I've been where you are.
Yeah.
Let me show you how to do it. Let me lead from the front.
Absolutely.
So,
Very cool.
But I would say train.
Yeah, cool.
Yeah.
No, that like 70 kilos, man. That's like 2 Indian athletes.
Yeah. Legitimately unreal.
Did you had a couple of questions on your side?
Yeah, I'll pull up 2 questions.
Yep.
I had a few, but I've picked a couple good ones.
Cool.
One was the top 3 traits in an athlete. So obviously, like, athlete is a very broad term, but we pretty much already discussed what it takes to be a champion. So I would say just having a passion for what you do, in my opinion. You're asking a lot of questions because you're so committed to being the best, and just understanding that there are sacrifices that have to be made. If you're not willing to make them, don't. That's fine. But just don't expect to be absolutely incredible at anything. Like, that sounds harsh.
That's the
but
reality.
You look at anyone in life who has had a tremendous amount of success and look at their lifestyle, at some point it was probably extremely unbalanced.
Yes.
You know, like I 4 or 5 years ago when I was, you know, I'm 30 now, at, you know, 24, 25, when I should have been out getting on the piss every weekend with my mates, like most people do at 25.
Yep.
You know, I was working 80, 90 hours a week. And I'm not saying that to high note myself.
No.
People told me it wasn't healthy and it wasn't good for me. I'm like, yeah, I know it's not, but I want to be a really good personal trainer. I want to be a really good coach. I don't want to have to work in a job that I don't like until I'm 60 or 70 years old. You know, I want to be really, really good at this. I want to be one of the best. So, you know, you have to sacrifice something. And there were things that I was willing to sacrifice, just like any good athlete. So yeah, I would say sacrifice is probably
it's a good one
in there as well. What about yourself?
I agree with that. Sacrifice for one. And look, you know, if you're going to pursue a chosen sport or a discipline that you want to turn into either a career, whether it be professional, amateur, or, you know, just go full time in it, I think passion plays a significant role. You know, it's all well and good to turn up and go through the motions, but the really great athletes, and, you know, I'll come from a bodybuilding bias here, they do the 1%ers. They do the little, like we spoke about with Lisa before, you know, posing when she could have socialised, or, you know, things like that. That may seem insignificant at the time, because she was still, 6 weeks out at that point. They probably, you know, those 15 minutes or half an hour or whatever it is spent accumulates to perfection on stage, right? And that's what needs to be delivered to get to the top. Yeah.
Absolutely.
That'd be my take.
No, totally agree.
Yeah.
Then another question is, how do you manage fluid in the legs for your athletes traveling?
Good question.
So for me, my first point is, like, I just try not to change too much. I generally find that most people won't experience this, especially so deep in a contest prep, because they're just so lean at this point that even a little bit of fluid is probably not really going to matter too much. And it's almost barely noticeable if there is any. But I always say, like, just try not to change too much. If you're on like a 13-hour flight, you're obviously going to be sitting down a lot, so maybe reduce your carbohydrates a little bit, maybe reduce your sodium a little bit. Keep your fluids up so your body is still actually pushing fluid out. The last thing you want to do is completely drop your fluid. We know, you know, how much that can throw things into a tailspin at the best of times. So I would say just try to avoid changing too much, and part of the fluid retention comes on as like stress on the body as well. And going into a completely different time zone and having to change your sleeping habits and get onto their time, that's part of the challenge too. So for my clients, I break down their plan in like a timely fashion. So say when you get on that flight, X amount of hours in, eat this. X amount of hours in, eat that. And then try and sleep at this time. So I can't even remember it off the top of my head, but if I have a client flying to Los Angeles to go to America and they're on the morning flight, I'll say you need to sleep in the second half of that flight, because when you get to America, you're going to be there in the morning.
Yeah.
So the flight is about 13 and a half hours. So you want to eat every 3 hours, 3 meals, or every 2 hours. So get you to about 6 hours. Try and sleep the last 7.
Yep.
So then when you wake up, you're starting a new day and you're already kind of, in that, I guess, that zone.
Yeah.
Still might not be perfect, but try and set up the plan so you're not changing too much, but set it up in a fashion where you're trying to avoid jet lag, because that's usually the biggest problem. Is if you get jet lag, your sleep is going to be in the shitter.
Yeah.
And if your sleep is bad, there's more stress on the body. We know what happens from there.
Would you suggest, depending on where they're traveling and how far it is, for them to get in a few days early?
Yes, absolutely. So my general rule is if the flight is less than 3 hours, 1 day.
Yep.
If the flight is 6 hours or more, 2 days.
Yep.
If the flight is anything over like 8 or 9 hours, give yourself 3 days.
Okay.
If I got someone going to America for a show, I say, look, earlier the better. If you can get there like a week before, that's even better, because not only do you have a chance to let that potential fluid dissipate, you also give yourself a chance to get back on schedule over there and get your circadian rhythm right, get your sleeping right, and also just get your surroundings, get a little bit of a routine, because, bodybuilders are so routine driven, as you would know. Try and get in as early as you realistically can. I understand everyone's got jobs and only has certain amounts of leave. The earlier you can, the better.
Yeah.
But if for something like less than 3 hours, generally you're not going to experience any issues. Of course, some people have certain medical conditions that can worsen this, and that's a whole different topic of conversation. But yeah.
That's cool.
Do you have anything to add to that?
No, that was my only point. Would have been get in early, depending on the length of the flight, and obviously, making sure you do not stop drinking throughout the course of the flight, particularly longer ones. I have a bad habit of doing that personally. But,
not drinking or drinking?
No, not drinking. Yeah, because I don't want to get up and go to the toilet.
Yeah.
Particularly when you're
Get an aisle seat.
Yeah. Well, I tried to, but I lost that battle.
I was not having a bar of any window or middle seat. I've been through enough.
Oh, yeah, I got 15 years on you. I should have pulled more authority, but I just gave in. I felt sorry for you.
Yeah, look, you should. I'm so hard done by.
But yeah, no, look, drinking water obviously to keep the body going and get in early. Like even, I know in the past, and it's been probably a mistake that I made. People competing in like Townsville would catch that red eye flight the day before. 6 a.m. goes up, which means they got to get to the airport, which means they're getting up at 3. Like I've done it personally.
Yeah.
And it was just dumb. Yeah. So things like that you shouldn't do. You should try and get in on a comfortable flight, not a ridiculously early flight or late flight.
My first my first ever show was Townsville. Yeah. In 2015, I flew to Townsville the morning of the show. No joke. I woke up at like 4 a.m. I'd had my base coat done the night before.
Yeah.
I flew to Townsville. I had my breakfast. I flew to Townsville, and I went and got my food that morning. Then I went and got my tan, because back then you used to have to get your spray tan elsewhere.
Yeah.
This was 8 years ago.
Yeah, of course.
Oh, what is it? Yeah, 8. It's 20. Yeah, 8 years.
Yeah.
It's been 8.5 years since I competed. Oh my god, I'm such a has-been. This is 8.5 years ago, so now tanning is on site for a lot of companies.
It is, yeah.
But back then it wasn't.
No,
so if your tan was screwed, you were screwed. You're in trouble.
Yeah.
So I went to this hotel, got my top coat, and obviously with a top coat of tan that's been sprayed on, you can't touch it. So I'm super tedious getting in and out of taxis. Uber wasn't around then, so you had to call a taxi. 131008, black and white cabs get it straight. That's how I remembered it. And I don't recommend that.
No, I wouldn't either.
Definitely don't do that. And for me though, it wasn't even something I thought about. It's just I'd just go up on the day.
Well, you don't know what you don't know, right?
I was 22.
You're not going to tell me you flew back that same night. What did we do? That'd be a fair effort.
I think we did.
Are you serious?
I'm pretty... I'm trying to remember.
Back then, those shows ran pretty late because
we flew back the next day.
Yeah.
We got accommodation, so we checked into the accommodation after, I think. It was so long ago. It was a very different part of my life. And yeah, like back then, you would do the show, then you would have a good feed after.
Yeah, absolutely.
And then, had a good feed after. Went home the next day and had that day off too.
Yep.
And then I had a show next week.
Yep.
And then I looked worse the week after. And I'm thinking, why don't I look better? I didn't know shit back then. So, yeah, no, it's it was interesting. So yeah, don't travel on the day of your show.
No.
I mean, I actually I looked great. I placed really well. It was probably the best I ever looked relative to, all things considered. Just didn't have a clue. But yeah, don't do it.
Maybe you could have gone better.
Yeah, maybe.
Flew in earlier. Who knows?
Maybe. No, the guy who beat me was pretty good. I come second. He was unreal.
Yeah, okay.
I was not
that's
there.
Oh, well, all right. We'll wrap it up there, Joe. I appreciate your time. I'll say namaste. And
namaste.
Done your butt.
Done your butt.
But we might grab you for another one while we're
Absolutely.
here, given that we've got a little bit of time before the show kicks off. But just quickly, what are you looking forward to about the show this weekend, given its enormity?
There's a lot. I won't give away everything, but we've got 10 class splits for first timers men's physique. That is insane.
That's hectic.
10, I think it's over 100 men's physique first timers. Just first timers. So that is nuts. So I'm just looking forward to not only the volume, but from what I've seen, the quality of competitor, and just being able to have a front row seat to that. Obviously, I've got to judge him, but I'm just really looking forward to the show. And the shows over here are so good. Jay does such a great job of putting on an amazing event, emceeing such a good event. Giving the athletes their time and just everything that comes with it, and just being a part of it. It's so cool, as you know. It's gonna be great. I love Goa. Goa's awesome.
Goa's good.
It's it's tropical for anyone who hasn't been. It's tropical.
It's just got a good feel.
I just feel relaxed when I come here.
Yeah, compared to some of the other cities, which are very, very chaotic.
Yeah.
This is very relaxed.
It's awesome.
Yeah. Cool. All right. Well, I'll see you there.
Oh, and I'm looking forward to Fisherman's Wharf on Monday.
Yeah, absolutely. A little bit of a tradition now as we go to this seafood restaurant post-show and just a bit of banter gets thrown around, shall we say.
Quite a bit.
We unwind,
which
is good. All right, mate. Well, thank you once again. We'll jump on another one in a couple of days maybe. But no, that was a really good insight. Really, really good insight. So anyone listening, obviously, if you want to follow Joey, if you already aren't, I highly recommend it. Joey Cantlin PT, is that your Instagram?
Yep, it is.
Cool.
Yeah.
All right, so give him a follow so you'll get inundated now. You watch, you get smashed.
Yeah, well, this is a very popular podcast.
Oh, I know it is. Oh, don't you worry. All right, I'll wind off now. Thanks, mate. Appreciate it.
Appreciate it.
Okay, well, firstly, I'll thank Joey for his time today. He's in the neighbouring room to us here at the hotel, but I thought it was a great opportunity to grab him and just pick his brain, given his experience, not only as a coach, as a judge, as an athlete. And as you can tell, we spoke for well over an hour, and I'm sure there's some good pieces of advice in there for anyone, no matter what level of athlete you're at. So, look, if anyone is obviously interested, please follow Joey along. He's some of his athletes are outstanding, and those that are familiar with him and his team, he delivers quality. Now, if anyone's interested in obviously my coaching services, as I always say, please jump on paulsbodyengineering.com. Have a look around. Of course, you can DM me as well. If you've enjoyed this podcast, please share it, screenshot it, put it on your stories, tag myself at Paul's Body Engineering, tag Joey as well, Joey Cantlin PT. And as I say to every single client, every single day, have a great day.